Welcome everyone to episode 13 of the Chris Perish podcast. I am your host, Chris Perish, and with me, wait a second, that is not Joshua Joseph. He unfortunately had to take the week off to attend to personal matters. So I am here with the co-host of Turnbuckle Talk, the host of Saturday Night Gaming, and one member of the Raw Patrol, Chris Best. Chris, how are you doing? And thank you for stepping in.
Doing pretty good. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you. And we also just want to let everybody know that you can visit rogueenergy.com. Use that promo code PERISH, P-E-R-I-S-H. If you want a little bit of intake flavors, go to rogueenergy.com. They also have good stuff like swags, like hats. I got a hat. It fits beautifully. You can get mouse pads. You can get shakers. You can get a plethora of product there over at rogueenergy.com. Just do me a favor. Do yourself a favor. Save 10%. Save a little bit of moolah for your order. And use that promo code PERISH, P-E-R-I-S-H, at checkout. And enjoy. And then also, if you want to check any past episodes or even current episodes in the after it's finished, make sure you're checking out the Chris Perish podcast live on Spotify, as the Chris Perish podcast is live on Spotify. But yeah, today we're going to start talking some NFL football due to the request of Joshua Joseph, but he is not here. So we will go back into the wrestling to start off. We will save that for next week, but we will talk some football because I know, Chris Bess, you're not an avid NFL guy, but
I'm still learning the game. I'm still learning the game.
Maybe by the end of the episode, we'll get you to be, because it is the off season right now. So we'll talk about that. But one thing we want to talk about right now, it's AEW Revolution tonight. And usually you don't hear a lot of AEW on this show because, well, I'm not a big AEW fan. But what I am a huge fan of is the legendary career of the icon Sting. If you see me perform, you know that I do a lot of Sting type maneuvers, like the Stinger Splash, like the Scorpion Death Drop, and sometimes the Scorpion Death Lock only, if I have to. Got to counter the Sharpshooter somehow. But yes, this is Sting's last match. He is partnered up with Darby Allin, taking up the Young Bucks for the AEW Tag Team Championship. Not so much let's talk about maybe that match per se, but let's talk about maybe the story and the history and the career of Sting. Chris Bass, when I tell you the icon Sting, what jumps to your mind?
My first memory of watching WCW was Sting winning the WCW title from Ric Flair in 1988.
Is it, and like what, if maybe the audience doesn't know too much about that moment, can you tell us a little bit more about it, and like what about it stood to you, and why years later, almost 40 years later, why about 35-ish, but why that moment? Why, when I ask you about Sting, why do you go to that moment?
As I said, it was my first time ever like watching WCW. I was in Michigan with my mom and my stepdad at the time, and it just happened to be on. My mom thought it was just wrestling in general that I liked, so I sat down and watched it. Didn't know a single wrestler on that card, but it was Sting's presence in that main event. Just the way he carried himself, his look, the face paint, the blonde hair. It was his entire look, and Ric Flair's entire look, coming out in the flashy robes with the title and everything like that. And it was just, that whole match was just pure magic from bell to bell. Anytime Sting and Ric Flair got in the ring, it was pure magic.
Yeah, that's very much something I cannot disagree with. Is in the chat if you want to get involved, talk about Sting. Right now we are talking the legendary Sting, the icon Sting that they call him. I know for me personally, like I didn't start watching Sting on a regular basis until WCW came to Canada, and by that point, he was transitioning, not fully yet, into that Crow Sting. look. But obviously, with the network, with YouTube, and with the internet, I learned how to use them properly. And hey, I learned what things were like before. And I always loved Sting's energy. I always loved his interaction. I always loved the aura that Sting had, whether
Mm-hmm.
even if he maybe didn't even feel good, you couldn't tell because when you watch Sting, you always got three things. You always got some revved up passion. You always got that high impact energy. And you always got a really good match. He was very good between the ropes. I think very underrated with his work ethic. I think he got consumed by always having a good character that people actually forget, like bell to bell, how good he really is. And yes, that like those matches with Ric Flair really put him on the map. And then
Mm-hmm.
obviously the stuff in WCW really helped put him into a different category. And then you saw kind of maybe the work kind of through the TNA, some WWE. He didn't wrestle a lot in WWE, more so in the TNA timeline. And that's kind of when I felt like his body of work really got like respected a little bit more. He was superstardom in WCW, but I mean, I think that had a lot to do with the moments, the stories, the angles
Yeah.
that he. Anytime you're the catalyst that is driving the nail in the NWO, I think you're primed for a really good position. But no, and I think of Sting, I just think of those three things, and I'm just always enamored with his ability to be larger than life because when I watch pro wrestling, that's what I still want to see. I want to see characters that are larger than life. I remember
Mm-hmm.
watching wrestling as a kid, and I say this now, but like one of the reasons why I loved wrestling was a lot of people read comic books, and I got to watch comic books on TV
Yeah.
pro wrestling, and so that was always pretty cool. And so we have Bobby Stats coming in saying hello, hello, hi Bobby, how are you doing? Right now we are talking a little bit of Sting. What, Bobby? What was your favorite Sting moment? And what when we say Sting, how does that respond to you? What do you think of when you hear the icon Sting? Um, but yeah, so like as watching like WCW, I thought a lot of the Crow face Sting. Obviously, I enjoy the movie The Crow as well, so I thought that was really cool. Um, and I just love that presentation. But yeah, no, is there more like we talked about like you talked about Ric Flair and stuff, and I think that's probably going down as his greatest foe in
Oh
wrestling.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but what are some like in your eyes? What are some like really good feuds that Sting had through his career that maybe people don't talk about enough? As Bobby coming in saying Sting winning the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, and
That was a
yeah,
magical moment. That was a very magical moment, Bobby Stat.
and
Um,
I think that's something too, as he touched on before we get to your answer. Sting wrestled for almost 40 years.
yeah.
So his timeline moments are going to take up a whole lifetime. So that's just insane. But yeah, no, to your response.
Yeah, there a feud that I can guarantee nobody talks about actually harkens back to the very first WCW pay-per-view I ever ordered, which was Slamboree 95. The main event for that show was Hogan and Savage versus Vader and Flair. But on
Mhm.
the undercard, they had Sting versus Big Bubba Rogers, Big Boss Man, Ray Trailer.
Yeah,
Um, that match, like I didn't know what to expect going into that match. I knew that Boss Man was a decent worker for a big guy. Sting was a great worker for a small guy. So I was really interested to see the dichotomy between those two. And what I got was just fantastic, a fantastically fun match. Even the feud going into that was very emotionally driven, especially for Sting. Like Sting just had a lot of fire about him in his promos, and it's like he made me want to watch that match going into that show. Bubba did too. Bubba had this like cocky, like arrogant attitude towards the match, still made me want to see that match, and I was thoroughly impressed and thoroughly enjoyed by that by that feud.
yeah. Bobby Bonito coming in saying Sting's feud with Bobby Roode at TNA, and I think that's that's the one. I think when you talk about
Oh,
Sting,
yeah.
and then you kind of want to go back to like the him and Hogan, him going up against the Aces and Eights, and just all that little stuff. So like, but yeah, I think the one person, because I'm old school, I like the one-on-one. Sting and Bobby Roode is great. It's just so funny when you were talking about Sting being the small guy. And it's just like that blows me away. Like just to hear that in a line, because Sting's over 6'3", well over
Yeah, but I mean,
250 pounds.
I was
That
comparing
sounds
him to
weird
the
coming
size
from a
of
guy
Big
who's
Bubba.
5'7", 180.
Comparing him to the size of Big Bubba Rogers, who was over 300 at the time,
Yeah. But yeah, no, just hearing Sting and small guy, and I'd be like, well, not. What I always thought was interesting with Sting, as you open up that Rogue Energy, I can hear it. I just know that's what you're drinking.
Oh yeah, it's the fruit punch Rogue Energy.
But yeah, one thing I loved about Sting is his ability to evolve throughout his career. And yes, he evolved as a Crow, and then that kind of stayed pretty much for the rest of his career. Yeah, like he kind of want to say, well, he had the Joker thing in TNA, but I mean, the Joker thing, yeah, was a little bit of an extension of the Crow face Sting. But yeah, I mean, I'll count that, because I mean, usually an evolution of a character is usually just an extension of something. But what I loved is what he was able to bring into that. He had that, the leather jacket, that, nice little like leather raincoat jacket that he would always have. And he'd always step out of the shadows during the rain, very much an essence of the character in The Crow. But then he also had that black baseball bat. And really at the time, nobody did anything with the baseball bat. It wasn't necessarily something that you always saw. You would always see it if you ever saw like a show at a baseball stadium. Okay, you'd incorporate some of the baseball product in there, but not as an everyday thing. And then we really saw that really come out when Sting was in WCW going up against the NWO. And I just thought that was so cool, because it's such a good equalizer, such a different equalizer. He didn't really use a chair. He didn't have barbed wire. He didn't do anything like that. He had something different. It was actually funny, because later in my career, when I was a part of a group that was kind of more of a gang type group, I thought, okay, what made me feel tougher? And I'm like, well, I got a baseball bat, but it was hard finding just a black bat. So I just spray painted it black, like Sting. He had just recently, that was during the time when WCW was bought out. He had that stretch where he didn't do anything. But it was just so cool to me that, okay, just get a baseball bat. And it's so handy too, because you can hit people so many different ways with the baseball bat. I didn't realize how useful a baseball bat as a weapon for wrestling really was. So Sting, thank you. You're a genius. But one story I want to talk about that I think was the reason that when WCW came to Canada, that was actually what made me like, Chris Jericho was my guy. Not going to lie. But the story that absolutely attached me to WCW at the time was the time where he wasn't speaking. And it was him wanting Hogan. And it's the moment where I remember it was him, and I believe it was J.J. Dillon in the ring. I could be wrong on the name, but I think it was J.J. Dillon. And they asked him what he wanted, and a fan had a sign that said, Sting wants Hogan. And he took the sign, and he used that as his communicational way of indicating what he wanted. And he didn't use his words. He used his body language. He used the things around him. And it was so amazingly powerful that through the ability of not speaking, he was able to communicate so much. And I just thought that was just amazing. And now you're 25 years after the fact, it still blows my mind with how good that was, despite not seeing what I take for granted. And that is a promo, that is a word, that is all those things. Sting took that away and became an icon without having to speak. I just want to take you back to that timeline. And like, what did you think about all that stuff? Because again, I thought it was absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, me too. When I want to take you back to actually when Sting became the Crow, and just how like we would see like throughout that year 96 97 we would see the NWO just running roughshod on everyone, destroying everybody in their path. But we'd always see lurking in the background, somewhere up in the rafters, Sting reminding us, I'm coming for you, Hogan. I'm coming for that championship. I'm going to take that belt from you. Just as you said, Sting didn't need to say anything during that, but we knew we wanted Sting and Hogan. We wanted Sting to take out the NWO.
Yeah, and that's something that he was known to do in WCW, coming down the rafters. And sometimes he actually had that crow on there, which was very reminiscent of, the movie, how he got his look, which thank you to Scott Hall for, as Scott Hall has been known for giving Sting the idea of the Crow Sting. Joshua Joseph coming in, supporting the channel like he is. He is just a beauty, isn't he? At the end of the day, Sting is the smartest and most well-preserved talent ever. He learned he had to change minimal things to be a fan favorite. He understands wrestling for everyone. And that's really true, because as much as people like to praise The Undertaker for what he meant to WWE, Sting was exactly the same thing for WCW, and then became almost something very similar with TNA. And then now he does this thing with WWE, and then with AEW. And tell me someone else that wrestled in all those promotions and never once was just perceived to be like somebody you didn't care for. WCW, WWE, TNA, and AEW. Sting was always perceived the same way, a fan favorite, one of the top stars. And it's because of what Joshua Joseph just said. When he had to make changes, he made minimal changes. He didn't go extreme. He just did the little things that kept him going. And I thought that was a very good point, Jay.
Yeah. I can't think of anybody who was like that. I mean, other than The Undertaker. Yeah, The Undertaker did make some changes to his character, but they were also minimal, just as in the case with Sting. The only glaring change was maybe when Taker became Biker Taker, but that's also because he was coming back from like being gone for like 6 months.
Bobby coming in saying it was great to see Sting in the TNA Hall of Fame in 2012, and I think that's something that it's just great to see him getting recognized, because he's in the TNA Hall of Fame, he's in the WWE Hall of Fame. I'm sure if AEW had a Hall of Fame, he'd be in that for sure.
I guarantee you Sting's going to be the first inductee if AEW forms its own Hall of Fame.
I really hope Jericho is, to be quite honest, and I think Jericho deserves that. Just being the first big signing for AEW, but yes, I can definitely see Sting being in there. Speaking of AEW, I want to give a shout out to Tony Khan, something you don't ever hear me say a lot here on the Chris Perish podcast, but yes, I recognize it. When you saw Sting on his last Dynamite, he came through those rafters, something that you were talking about earlier that made him so different. Obviously, AEW have worked with Martha Hart in the past. We all know what unfortunately happened with Owen Hart. Before that was done, Tony Khan reportedly went to Martha Hart to get the okay with it. Not something he had to do, but just from a real human standpoint, he did. And I just want to say kudos to that. That was really in great taste. So good job, Tony Khan. I want to see more of that Tony Khan, please, because that's a Tony Khan that I can get behind. Didn't need Twitter to be a good guy there, did you? But yeah, no, going back to just Sting's like iconic matches or iconic moments. I want to take back like when we first saw Sting in WCW and make that transformation. And I'm gonna flat out say Sting WCW is my favorite version of Sting. Easy.
Yeah.
Not even a question. As much as I'm a WWE guy, it just didn't feel the same. Also, I hated his theme song in WWE because it wasn't that WCW one that I loved.
Mm-hmm.
I go back and listen to it, and I don't hate it. It has that guitar riff kind of in the end that I think is actually amazing.
Yeah. Now, did you like when he was using Seek and Destroy as well, or?
I did and I didn't because I also really liked his theme before, and I got why. I got why he used it. I like Metallica. Actually, scratch that. I love Metallica. So yeah, I do, but at the same time, no. To me, for me, Seek and Destroy didn't fit him as much as that instrumental theme.
Mm-hmm.
That might be my personal opinion, but I don't know.
You still got the pop he needed, though.
Oh, it's Sting. If he doesn't,
yeah,
man, he's a better pop than Sprite. Yeah, I said it. But yeah, I don't know. Like, it's just going back to that, like his transformation though. Like, I still remember the promo where he says the only thing for sure is that nothing's for sure, and then he drops the mic, walks out, and that's the last thing he says for a while, like well over a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and I think what he said was something to Hogan, like, you got no guts. Like, I think that was the next words he was recorded saying on WCW television. Mm-hmm. And that was like well over a year. But I always loved the symbolism, and I loved how everything fed into what he was doing next. It was a story. His career is a story. And I think that's what I loved about Sting. The character Sting in professional wrestling is that from start to finish, yes, wrestling, you have the pro wrestling there. But I love that every moment you had, there were stories going involved. And you always saw chapters in that story. And I just thought that was beautiful. And I wonder if maybe that's where Cody Rhodes, who is known to be a WCW guy, I wonder if that's where he got the story aspect. Because when I think of like a true wrestling career story, it's hard not to think about the icon Sting.
Yeah, and when you said that promo, I actually remember the promo myself as well. I love the fact that building to him becoming the Crow, he lost everything. He lost all his friends. He lost WCW. Basically, he lost his by saying that he wasn't going to join the NWO because Lex Luger started the ball rolling on the Crow gimmick by accusing Sting of wanting to join the NWO. And that's I love how that was like a 3 to 4 month build to getting the Crow gimmick.
Yeah, and I always loved is it was the first time in wrestling where I saw the color palette of something not always go to the expectation of the fans, because it's very much a thing that if a group say wears a color, that those colors are almost attached, and you see like the rest of the talent almost steer away from said colors, right? Like, go back to the DX time and see how very little you saw people wear black and green. Go back to where you saw, actually, we'll go right now with the Judgment Day. Not a lot of people were black and purple outside of the Judgment Day. And I always think that's really cool that there's that thing. Joshua was saying, I will say I did not enjoy Wolfpack Sting. That seemed forced. Can I just say in a blanket statement, it's WCW. They have a lot of things that probably felt forced.
Hmm. Well, that sort of felt like they were
Uh,
trying to combine Crow Sting with Surfer Sting into one gimmick.
yeah. And it kind of goes exactly to what I was talking about with the colors, because
Hmm.
originally, when he wears the black and white, because that's what its Surfer Sting was a bunch of bright colors, like he
Yeah.
was that California vibe style, right? Especially with like the white flat top haircut. And then he had the neon greens, the neon yellows, the blues, the oranges, like
Hmm.
everything popped in the bright aspect. But then when he transformed into the Crow, he changed to black and white. And black and white also happen to be the colors of the mega group known as the New World Order. So when he does that, of course, NWO is going to bring him in. They had the fake Sting and everything. But now all of a sudden, he's someone that is looking like the bad guy, but he represents change. He represents the positive. And he almost went Batman style and used his uh his uh his look as a symbol to something else. We see Batman being a symbol to vengeance. It almost like was like Sting was using himself as a symbol for change and for
Mm.
just in that way, as Bobby coming in, or Joshua coming in saying yes, but Sting was justice against NWO. He was the representation of justice, being the black and white. Yeah, he was the justice against the black and white NWO. He was that against the Hulk Hogan. We're taking the company over. I never once felt that a red and black Wolfpack NWO. I never felt that was we're taking over the WCW name. I thought that was always we're competing against the black and white NWO.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why I don't know, that's why I was okay with Sting going there. It just didn't feel right though. I don't know. What were your thoughts on that whole little aspect though?
I actually tend to agree. It didn't feel right for Sting or Lex Luger to even be there, really. Um, I mean, Sting fit in more than Lex Luger. Lex Luger kind of stuck out like a sore thumb to me in the Wolfpack.
Mhm.
Um, but as far as like seeing this, seeing him go back to like, because it seemed like, as I said earlier, it just seemed like they were trying to combine Crow and Surfer Sting into one gimmick, and that didn't mesh very well for me as well. Sting was still putting on hell of a good matches around that time too. So, but I just kind of wish that Sting was the outlier and like the third person in that 2-team feud. Still,
Yeah. Now we kind of talked about how we thought Ric Flair was his greatest foe. He is set to tag with Darby Allin against the Young Bucks for the AEW Tag Team Championships tonight at AEW Revolution in his final match. And yes, his final match is as a tag team for the tag team titles. Who in your mind was his greatest ally? Whether it was through a tag team partner, whether it's through just fighting with them, who would you say from his entire career, who you think Sting's greatest ally was?
Lex Luger. They I thoroughly enjoyed their tag team title run. Um, anytime it seemed like Sting was in trouble, regardless if they were partners or not, Sting Luger was always there to help him out. Sting, same thing for Luger. So
Okay. Uh,
even in a backstage form, because it was Sting who brought Lex Luger to the WWE or back to WCW
yeah.
and so forth.
Okay. Yeah, it's weird because I think that just shows what I loved about Sting is that he always was alone on a lot of things,
Hmm.
because the last time he did anything with Lex Luger was that WCW. Now it's the early 2000s, maybe
Yeah.
99. So we're talking 24 years. And it's so weird to me that even at 24 years after, it's still that. Right? I don't disagree with that, but it's so weird to me that in 24 years, not one person is even close to the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people can say Darby Allin, and I see a lot of comparisons between a 2024 version of Darby Allin with, Sting and what he represents as a character. And to me, it might be the closest comparison, but it's really not the closest. Like it's not close. It just is the closest comparison. But yeah, very interested. Make sure if you're checking that out, if you want to check out the finale of Sting's in-ring career, go check out AEW Revolution tonight, wherever you can find it, whether it's through the pay-per-view services, whether it's through the fight aspect. But yeah, go check it out. Go celebrate the career of Sting as he takes on the Young Bucks with Darby Allin for those AEW Tag Team Championships. Joshua Joseph coming in saying his greatest allegiance is with God, because Sting has had a career no one else has touched, barely ever hurt longevity with his fans, and still rocking long hair. Yes, but we're not talking about Shawn Michaels' tag team partner. We're trying to talk about some of Sting's tag team partners. See, because he tag teamed with God, not
yeah.
But
I mean, Sting tag teams with God outside the ring.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, and it's actually funny because it was actually his religion, his founding of Christ, to why he didn't initially join WWF back when they purchased WCW, because he wasn't a fan of the product and how it did a few things. And it was actually his religion that caused him to just take a step back and enjoy not being active for a bit instead of jumping into the full. But we all know how much that invasion angle could have changed had it had the likes of Hogan, the NWO, Sting, Goldberg, some of the bigger names. And then he later made his impact known, pun intended, in the WWE when he helped Dolph Ziggler wash out the Authority.
That pop that night, wow.
Yeah. It's, for me, it was just amazing. We talked about the little things he did. One of the little things he did was he changed his coat from the black. Now it's to the red. I really didn't like that. And Josh, when you're talking about the Wolfpack thing and you didn't like that transformation to red, I didn't like the red trench coat simply because I just wanted my black and white crow Sting. But it's a nice robe, though. I will gladly have a robe like that any day of the week. Twice on Sundays because of pay-per-views. But yeah, no, it was probably one of the most surreal things. Like, I still thought Jericho debuting in 99 was surreal. But seeing Sting in the 2010 era, that was pretty surreal.
And that was at a point where a lot of wrestling fans had given up on the idea of Sting even coming to the WWE. And boom, there he is, Survivor Series,
Yeah, Joshua Joseph saying it was Edge for me, and I'm assuming that's when Edge came back at the Rumble in 2020. Yeah, it was the Rumble in 2020. But another one was, I think, AJ Styles. That one was pretty surreal. But it might, just a lot of moments, though. And that's the one thing I think Sting is very much a... No, the coat for Sting, his coat was too edge-like. He did the damn thing before him, man. Come on. That's a millennial response if I know one.
Yeah.
Now I hope your Bears do make bad. I'm just kidding. I hope they don't, actually. But yeah. No, yeah. He had it before him. Come on, you know that. Yeah, he did. He had the trench coat in WCW.
Yeah,
Go back and watch 96, 97 Sting. He had a trench coat. He legitimately ripped off the character from the Crow movie.
Also, that red coat he wore in WWE, he wore in TNA.
Yeah. But that was after Edge.
Yeah.
I will, yeah, but yes. But yeah, no, go back and check. Go back and check 90s Sting. All right, that predates Edge. No, not in. Don't be so technical. All right, he had it on the network before Edge. How about that? Aha. Yeah, no, I just didn't like the coat. It just went from not trench coat to like puffy, and it was like, not for me. Although it did look really nice. But yeah, no, I want to kind of transition away. Man, thanks, Josh. You're always messing with my transitions, man. Always. You're just getting me riled up on things. But no, a little bit because what was let's transition from a bat, a trench coat, let's transition to a steel chair. Because one thing I want to talk about is kind of a perfect 10 return as Shawn Spears on Tuesday returns to the WWE and he takes out Rich Holland with a chair. And I say Shawn Spears because despite the 10 chants you heard on Tuesday, Ty Dillinger is not back. It was Shawn Spears. And now we are hearing the conversation now of, okay, who? And it's not a long list. And yes, you can have Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, yes, but in a way, they kind of still, I mean, I guess so. But in the modern era, not a lot of people who have worked for WWE under one name left, used another name, were able to bring it back. Shawn Spears, the chairman, is in NXT. Shawn Spears is one of the first of the modern era now to bring back a new name that he used in a different company in WWE. And I think it's just amazing. I think timing is just perfect. He seems to be a contender for the NXT championship right away. And I think that's something that he never had as Ty Dillinger. What were your thoughts about Shawn Spears returning to NXT WWE?
So we were just talking about surprise returns in Sting or surprise debuts in Sting showing up as Survivor Series in 2014. This one caught me out of left guard, just from out of nowhere as well, on a really what would essentially be just a random show for NXT, and he just shows up out of the blue, like what the F, David Blaine, as Carl Carafel would say.
And the beauty to that is that he had multiple video vignettes to kind of do this, right? Like it wasn't just oh my God, the lights go out and it's Shawn Spears. No, there were vignettes that nobody put together. Nobody clued it in. It was when he's in that kind of white light, that silhouette, where the fans see the body, they see the tattoos. That's something that was recognized. Thus, you heard those 10 chants. But what you didn't know is you didn't know that between those vignettes, the three faces, which let's take a look at that. The three faces were what? Ty Dillinger, Shawn Spears, and probably the time he was in WWE the first time around. Right? Because people forget this is now his third stint in WWE. So it could be that. It also could be, when he went to AEW, that Shawn Spears. Maybe the chairman was one version, Ty Dillinger was another, and then we have this one. Maybe that's the three faces, but maybe this is a different face as well. But
maybe that third face is Stan.
Yeah, who knows? That's something I want to see. Just that Shawn Spears moment in NXT. And it's just like, come on. It's just funny. Because I just want to hear it's like, why did you do that? Or something like that. And then maybe he gets in his face and be like, Spears, I don't care who you are. I am the boss here at NXT. I once kicked a man named Stan. I will kick you too. Something along that line. That would be really funny. But no, I think I think what's amazing is that we've seen now Lexus King go in NXT, and he's progressing at his own speed there. It's a little bit more of a natural learning curve for him. And I don't think he's been awful. I just think it's going to take some time. But I love the presentation. He looks more ready than he did in AEW based on that thing. But as Bobby Bonino was saying, it's great to see Shawn Spears in NXT. And I do, because I feel the Trick Williams and the Carmelo Hayes story doesn't need a championship. It's too personal for a championship.
Right.
And that's probably something we're going to see as Stand and Deliver. But Ilya Dragunov and that world title seems a little thin on contenders. So what's a perfect little opportunity there? Well, you bring in Shawn Spears, and I think that not only is a great contender, I think that's a great opportunity to put a championship on somebody else.
Yeah.
Keep with that fire that is that Shawn Spears, and how just white hot he is coming back right away. It's a big impact that he had. But then, he wins the title. He can either do one or two things. He could go with Ilya. He can have something with somebody else right off the bat. Because I think his first match back, maybe at Roadblock, maybe at something else, but he'll definitely have a situation with Ridge Holland again. And I think that's a great person to put him in the ring with, given the kind of the perception of Ridge Holland of, is he clunky in the ring? I don't think he is, but you put somebody who I think has the reputation of being one of the safest, one of the most respected in-ring workers in Shawn Spears with him. And I think that's a really good learning curve for Ridge Holland. And I think that's going to be a really good stepping stone for Shawn Spears in NXT. Where do you see Shawn Spears kind of going to? And do you think that type of Shawn Spears will eventually go back to the main roster? Or do you think this is more of an NXT Shawn Spears, and maybe you get like whatever his run is, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, however long, but do you think he then after that run goes to maybe a backstage role?
See, I kind of want to see Shawn Spears take the NXT title at Stand and Deliver. Because right now Carmelo and Tony D'Angelo are the two contenders for the title. They're having a number one contenders match at Roadblock. I don't buy Tony D'Angelo being a number one contender just yet. And I know that Melo is going to trick at Stand and Deliver. So as you said, that kind of leaves the championship scene for the NXT title a little bit bare. So I wouldn't mind seeing Shawn Spears be the guy who steps up in that role. Does he win the title at Stand and Deliver? Maybe, maybe not. But somewhere down the line, I could see him winning the championship, staying in NXT for, let's say, about a year before coming up to the main roster and doing what they do with him there.
Yeah, for me, it all depends on what he does. If he does things of value and he does things that I care about, and the stories are good, the angles are good, all those little details are good, I don't want him to go anywhere. I want him to continue doing what he's doing, because I don't like messing with somebody's rhythm, their momentum. If they're hot in one brand, just leave them be. Wait till you see that's not fizzling out, but maybe when you think, okay, maybe if we move from somewhere else, we can, really enhance that, then I would do something like that.
Yeah. So like if he runs out of challengers, we'll say, then you can bring him up to one of the main rosters, and now he's got a fresh list of challengers,
I just won't have the moving him up mentality until it's whatever. Like, I'm just going to say that the last two lines you just said, you had in your first 5 words, main roster call up. I'm not even thinking that right now, because I look at so much that he can do in NXT, and I'm just not putting a time stamp on it. What I'm doing is like, okay, we got your debut. We might have 1 or 2 people here. Let's see if we can stretch that. Let's see if we can make maybe a 2-week program last to 2 months, 3 months, and then we can extend this. Let's not worry about rushing you, because I think that's what they did with Ty Dillinger. They rushed him to the main roster, and he fizzled out, and it didn't really work. Then he got lost in the shuffle, and I think that just really hampered what he could do. I think right now you take your time, you're patient, you see what he can become, and then you just worry about, okay, let's make sure that we're putting him in the place to succeed first. And if that's an NXT for a bit, that's NXT. If we feel the next way of evolving is a main roster, sure, let's do that. But I think right now, let's try to maximize Shawn Spears as maybe a face of NXT. So maybe they can worry about moving Amelia Dragunov up to the main roster. They can worry about Carmelo Hayes, Trick Williams up to the main roster, but still have that Shawn Spears in NXT because that could be the driving force of NXT post Stand and Deliver. That's personally how I would think. Bobby Bonito's coming in saying he wants to see Shawn Spears and Tama Tonga in NXT. And I don't think I'd be against that at all. The only problem is it's being heavily rumored right now that Tama Tonga could be inserted in the bloodline right away. So my thing is, I think Tama Tonga helps Rock and Roman defeat Cody and Seth at night 1 at WrestleMania.
Tend to agree there. Because I've been trying to find a place to put Tama Tonga, and I wanted to stay away from the bloodline, but I just can't. I just can't with him.
Yeah. And it's weird because I think I know exactly where Bobby. I think I know exactly where we're going. You want to see him with Gallows and Anderson on NXT. Tell me if I'm right or wrong in the comments, because I can get behind that. But I also like what Gallows and Anderson are doing on are just in the tag team division. They could be that staple of the tag division in NXT for a bit right now, and I'm okay with that because that allows AJ Styles to do his own thing on SmackDown. That allows Mia Yim Michin to do her own thing on SmackDown.
That gives Gallows and Anderson the exposure that they sorely needed over the last year.
Yeah, I'm gonna put this out there. We thought right away that those video vignettes for Shawn Spears had something to do with maybe Bo Dallas, the Wyatt Six, something like that, right? Similar font, if not the same fonts being used on videos outside that Bo Dallas is doing. He's Bo Dallas until he has a new name. Just going to put that out there.
Yeah.
Going to always say Bo Dallas until he has a new name, whether it's Taylor Rotunda, whether it's Uncle Howdy, whatever the case may be. But until I know for sure he has a different name, he's Bo Dallas still. But I wouldn't be surprised if maybe the third face that Shawn Spears' videos was talking about, that his new face was, maybe he's a member of that group. Maybe he's debuting his own group. And it's that group that helps him win the title. And post Stand and Deliver, what we're seeing is maybe like a group type mentality that will run NXT from here on out. Very similar to what maybe the Undisputed Era was during the black and gold version of NXT. And I think I'd have a lot of time for that because now we can get to the point of, okay, you got Gallows and Anderson. If they're not involved in that, what could they be? Because they've been known to be a part of groups. So, I don't know. I'm just saying, keep your eyes open because I have a feeling Stand and Deliver is going to change the course of where NXT is going. They're going to a new platform in October. I think they're going to make some changes, and I think those changes are, we are going to remind people that NXT is not a third brand. I think down the road, we're going to see NXT be considered a top brand in WWE again.
Yeah, and that's why I'm going to be watching I'm going to be watching Roadblock on Tuesday with a close eye because of what Shawn Spears said. He said, "I will see you at Roadblock." He didn't specify anybody he was targeting or what he was going to do at Roadblock. So I'm very intrigued to see what he's going to do at that show.
Yeah. And and it's very intriguing to me that already he has come back. He hasn't done a lot. He's hit one person with a steel chair, and he did one promo walking out of the venue. But in that, all of a sudden, you can do just so much. And I don't know, it's quite amazing. But But also, what's amazing too is showing love and support to the people that you are supporting. So if you have a chance, and if you're on the YouTube, make sure you're hitting that thumbs up, you're hitting that notification bell, and you're getting absolute as many alerts that when the Chris Perish podcast is live, you are the first to be notified. If you're on the Twitch side, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. I know the sub fees, they're changing. So if you want to drop a sub, that'd be great. If you don't, that's great too. But just make sure that you're hitting subscribe to the channel so then when we do go live, again, you are notified. The common theme here is being notified. And if you're on the Facebook, make sure that you like the page Chris Perish, because that is the page where you're going to see the Chris Perish podcast live. And then also making sure that you're dropping a comment, you're hitting those emojis, because I like to see emojis. They make the day fun. But yeah, make sure you're doing that. Bobby Nino is coming in and saying, you guys think we'll see Shawn Spears and Tyler Breeze students in NXT in the future? Perhaps. I think, actually, I'll say this and then go straight to you. But I think NXT would do themselves a world of just amazement if they open themselves up to all the talent schools, whether it's Seth Rollins, whether it's Shawn Spears and Tyler Black's, or sorry, not Tyler Black's, Tyler Breeze's, just anybody, whether Booker T's, all that. I think that they're only on the pulse if they're a feeder system to a lot of these schools. Like, what were your thoughts?
I mean, they've already got some students from Booker T's school. Like they got Roxanne Perez there, so I would not mind seeing anybody from Shawn Spears or Tyler Breeze's school. Even the Nightmare Factory, I wouldn't mind seeing some of the students come from there. Even like you said, Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch's school too. I really do think that they could be used as a feeder system for NXT, as you said.
Yeah, and Bobby, you're asking if we're going to see the students of Shawn Spears and Tyler Breeze. We very well could see Shawn Spears versus Tyler Breeze in NXT, and I think I'd be okay with that.
I would love it if Tyler Breeze came back to the ring. I really would.
Well, he is wrestling. He is doing specific local shows, independent shows. He's just not full-time, and he is not signed anywhere exclusively as a performer.
Right.
But he does have a contract with WWE in other rules. So, yeah, as we all know, Up, Up, Down, Down is signed to WWE, and Tyler Breeze is a member of Up, Up, Down, Down. So he's also a playable GM in the upcoming game WWE 2K24, which is going to be available this Tuesday with the pre-order copy. I know Chris Best, you have you have an order on the way for that. I know I do. You're going to be doing some things with WWE 2K24 down the road. We'll get to that near the end of the episode, though, as we're talking a little bit pro wrestling, and yeah, Tama Tonga, we mentioned he has been rumored, and it's as inked as the contract that he is WWE bound. Your thoughts on the addition of Tama Tonga, and chat, what are your thoughts about the addition of Tama Tonga in WWE? Let's not talk about necessarily where we see him first, but just what we think he can bring to the WWE.
Oh, just the thought of seeing Haku's son in the WWE just totally excites me. I loved Haku when I was a little kid, and loved watching Tama Tonga in New Japan as well. Just it excites me because Tama Tonga does have a little bit of redemption, I guess you could say, with the WWE, because now he's coming back to the WWE better than he was before, because previously in WWE he was Camacho and wasn't really well utilized in that role.
Yeah, but like, what do you think like he will do? Like, well, what's something that you're hoping to see? Like, not necessarily saying, okay, let's try to go if he isn't a part of the bloodline. Where do you think he is going to be used?
I had him initially thought that they could put him on Raw. And I guess like the first feud you could maybe give him would be like Finn Balor, because of the fact that there is that Bullet Club history between the two of them. Bobby Stats saying that earlier said that he'd be great in NXT versus Shawn Spears, and I really do think that that would have been fine for him too, because that would have allowed him to learn the way WWE runs things as well.
Yeah.
There's just so many options for him that I like, you know.
Yeah. Also, I just want to fact check you. You said he was Camacho. He was not Camacho. His little brother was Camacho. It was actually Tanga Loa was Camacho. So
I could swear I read Tama and saw Camacho listed there.
Tama Tonga is the brother of Tanga Loa. So it's ironically enough, Bobby on the same page here, but he's like, it's great to see Tama Tonga in WWE. I'd be interested to see WWE bring in Tanga Loa for the tag team division. And yeah, that's something I think I want to see. I want to see a little bit more exclusion of maybe. I'm curious to see if that's going to lead into some people that he is associated with outside of WWE before. I want to see if maybe that's something that they bring in, because I think you can do some world of business with the bloodline stuff, with them involved, but also with maybe Bullet Club stuff involved too. If you have AJ Styles, you have Finn Balor, you have Gallows and Anderson, you have all this plethora of stuff going on. Yeah. I'd be very much intrigued on that. But also, I want to see like Tama Tonga going up against Randy Orton, going up against Seth Rollins, going up against Gunther, going up against LA Knight. I'm curious to see the fresh matchups, the different matchups. Maybe he goes up against Chad Gable. Just people that are a little bit different. Could he be big business in the bloodline? Absolutely. I think that's kind of the easy home run shot here. But what else can you do? Because he's going to bring in a lot of aggression, a lot of entertainment. Yeah, he's just amazing in the ring, but he's also going to want to do a lot as well. He's coming in WWE, probably understanding that there are spots to insert him right away on an easy scale. But it's probably the things outside of that are probably exciting for him. Like, I get to mix it up with said talent here. Maybe it's even guys like Bronson Reed, guys who like he is seeing come through the Japanese stage. Shinsuke Nakamura is another one to look out for. Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens. Nobody has a bad thing to say about those guys. So I can only assume Tama Tonga wants to get involved with almost as many different people as humanly possible. But he has a good chance to do that in the bloodline because they just piss everyone off. So, there's always that. But Tama Tonga going to be WWE bound and very intriguing to see kind of what that is. Is he a bridge to other people coming into WWE, or is he a vessel that is going to take a new stream into the WWE? So it'll be interesting. I have a feeling WrestleMania time, whether it's that actual show or right after, is when we'll see him being integrated in the WWE. And I do think it's on the main roster, not in NXT, even though I'd be okay with the NXT. But yeah, we got a little bit of Tama Tonga. We got a little bit of Shawn Spears. We even talked some AEW. This is kind of the point where now we talk NFL football. However, Chris Best, I know you're not the biggest NFL guy, so I'm going to push back again.
Like I said, I'm still learning the game, so
I'm going to just blow the whistle and be like, it's a technical foul. But before we do that, I know that you're a big pro hockey fan. Now, the interesting part is the wrestling world has been very good. They don't have anything on March 8th. But guess what? As a football and a hockey fan, they both have stuff on March 8th as the free agency for the NFL kicks off. And then the trade deadline is March 8th for hockey. I want to talk a little bit about both. But
All right.
with you, I'm going to talk about the hockey side. Next week, we'll talk about the May 8th side because I'm with that. But what are your what got you into being a hockey fan, and what do you expect with the craziness that is the NHL trade deadline? And yes, if you're watching this and you don't know a lot about hockey, understand that in Canada, trade deadlines, the free agency market, those are insane days for Canadian fans. Like those are just monster days. Everything's chaotic. If you're a hockey fan, those are 2 days that you're just blown away with. You're trying to find out what's going where. Imagine if pro wrestling had a free agency day. Ooh, that'd be crazy.
Yeah. So it got me into hockey. I guess I've been a hockey fan like my entire life. Just growing up with my grandpa watching NHL hockey, going to our local CHL team, OHL, the Sioux Greyhounds, just watching those guys and actually seeing where those players came to be afterwards too. Just it was actually Wayne Gretzky that got me more into hockey and wanting to watch more and more. Watching him as an Edmonton Oiler, as a LA King,
yeah,
as a and as a St. Louis Blues.
He was a New York Ranger too.
Yeah, he was.
Retired a New York Ranger.
And it was also my elementary school principal who got me into hockey, because you walked into his office and literally it was wall-to-wall Montreal Canadiens stuff. So to try and get on the good side of my principal, I learned hockey, and through that I became a deeper fan of hockey without even realizing it, you know?
Yeah. No, that's cool. And I know hockey is something that a lot of if you're not a Canadian, hockey might be a second language to you. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a lot of people that love hockey outside of Canada. Don't get me wrong, but it's still it's not a total dominant force like, pro wrestling can be worldwide, or the NFL is, or golf, even basketball and soccer. But it's everything in Canada. And what I think is amazing, especially with the trade deadline coming up, is you get to see those changes. It's just like the night after WrestleMania, which I think might be WWE's closest thing to a trade deadline. And that is the fact that you have the ability to see something completely different. It's going to just shape shift what you think the situation is right now. Guys are going to be moved, and then all of a sudden you're going to see that playoff picture, whether it's teams that are on the outside looking in. Maybe they're making that push in. Maybe they are deciding, hey, you know what? We might have a better chance next year if we do these moves. But what I think is amazing about the deadline this year is that there's no huge names, like no big top guy names. But what there is there's that extra on there. And when I say extra, it's like when you get a burger, like a hamburger, it's patty, meat, patty. Okay, nothing wrong with that. But it's the extra. It's the cheese. It's the bacon. It's the tomatoes. It's the lettuce. It's the sauce. It's all those different things that make it better. And that is what we're getting. We have all that available on the deadline. This what is it, Friday? Which is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And that's why it's going to be absolutely amazing, because these little extras, if you already have a burger that's amazing and you add a little bit more, it becomes just so good. But then when you give it to something that maybe that's just all you need, it's like perfect. It's like you had that. We've all had that thing where it's just like, you know what? I don't hate it. In fact, I like it. But if I just had this, I'd love it. And that's what you're going to get, whether it's like St. Louis Blues, maybe they're going to trade away the Pavel Buchnevich to the Worlds. That guy could transcend a team to the next level. Whether it's a goalie like Jacob Markstrom, who could maybe help the Colorado Avalanche kind of become more of that powerhouse that they have, give them some stability in their net. Or maybe we're seeing some Nate Sealers, Sean Walkers, some defensemen kind of go from Philadelphia outside and kind of give that stability on the blue line. You have that. And then you also have your Nick Dowds, your Adam Henriques, your centerman that can provide you some depth through the lineup, because we all know in order to win the Stanley Cup, you got to win 16 games. You got to go through 4, potentially 7 game rounds. So what you're looking at is the depth, and you need that depth. And I don't know, to me, that's going to be very intriguing. So yeah, what do you think, and what are your predictions of moves that we could see on Friday?
Oh, geez. You already mentioned the St. Louis Blues there, and I really want to see Edmonton make that push for can't think of his name right offhand. My brain just fucking took a shit.
Buchnevich, right?
Yeah, Buchnevich. I really want to see Edmonton make the push to get him, because I think that does provide depth. I do want to see them push for Nick Dowd as well, because that's one of the rumors going around right now, is that they're making that push. There's also a part of me, like, I'm looking at the list of potential goalies that are on the move. Like, we talk about the Jacob Markstrom move. We've talked about Fleury making that move, but that's obviously not going to be the case because of just how close Minnesota the Wild are in the wild card chase.
Mm-hmm.
But I really was hoping to see Fleury go to Edmonton as well. I was really hoping for that. I'm interested to see if Matt Dumba from the Arizona Coyotes, I'm really intrigued to see if he goes anywhere. Carrier from the Predators is another one I'm interested to see about. I'm also interested to see, like, a lot of these players who aren't really stars for their respective teams. I want to see where they go and see if they can become the star that they want to be for other teams. That's what always intrigues me about the trade deadline, is seeing those breakout players just make that big transition, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and what I think is going to be fun about this, because I'm watching the game. I'm watching the other game yesterday with my parents, and they're thinking I'm going on my phone because I'm communicating with people. No, I'm on Twitter all the time, just checking to see if any updates are going on around the trade market, because there is so much buzz about discussions, and you see so many discussions between teams going on, but that doesn't mean that leads to something. And what I think that always just gets you on the edge of your seat. You just want to hear. You just want to see that one thing where it's like, okay, we got an announcement to make said team, and that could be your team. They get it. They get that guy, right? Yeah, and as much as I want the Oilers to get Pavel Buchnevich, I have a feeling Pavel Buchnevich is not going to be traded. That is my bold claim out of this thing, is that Pavel Buchnevich stays put and maybe becomes a deal made in the offseason, or when he only has 1 year left on his contract. As much as I want to see him on my team, I think he is not going to get moved. I think the asking price is too high. That is something that I think is becoming too much of a norm now in the NHL, and that is teams are overpaying on every little thing. Apparently, second line guy, third line guy, everyone's a first round and something. And to me, I'm not moving a first round pick unless I get not only a player, but also some term on that. I'm not trading him for a rental. No, a rental second pick plus, cool. I'm okay with that, but I'm not going anywhere higher than a second pick. If I got a rental with term on it, now we can talk about that first round pick, because at least I got a little bit of future tied up to that first round pick. Because I'm just not giving you a potential of like a 6-7 year commitment player for 20 games.
Right.
And I just think that's a waste, and I just don't think that's proper asset management for any team. Another one I think the New Jersey Devils actually pick up Jake Markstrom. It's been rumored that there was a trade there, and they're willing to take on the full contract, and I think that is something we will see. We almost saw it a couple weeks ago, and then it broke off. So I think that will get done. And another trade I think we will see. I have a feeling we're going to see the Vegas Golden Knights pick up a few people. And I think it's going to be one of those things that piss everybody off because they're putting Mark Stone and Jack Eichel on LTIR, saving some cap. And we all know with what they've been doing in the past, you put people on LTIR, you squeak into the playoffs, and all of a sudden the cap does not exist in the playoffs, and they're good to go, and they're just fine. I think we're going to see something along that line, but I think this year we might actually see them getting penalized for it. So I think that's going to happen. I have a feeling we're going to see. I think this could be the year we see a big name that is not on the board get moved.
Who do you think that big name could be?
I don't know, but I think we might see a big name get moved. I would be very, very intrigued with that, but I have a feeling we're going to see a big name, and I think he's either going to go to Vegas, he's either going to go to Florida, or he's going to go to Colorado. That is my prediction. And I think Colorado, Bowen Byram is going to get moved out somewhere. And I don't think a lot of people are talking about Bowen Byram, but he is somebody who I think is going to get moved. And I have a feeling a team that's looking at him, I'm going to go with the Carolina Hurricanes. That is my prediction. I think Bowen Byram trade me to the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a very bad move, really.
Yeah. I'm intrigued. I wanted to bring a little bit of hockey talk because hockey's more up your alley than it is JJ's. Mm-hmm. So, there's that. Now, last topic of the day, NFL. Because, that's a staple here on the Chris Perish podcast. We are going to challenge you here because this is the timeline where if you're not a big NFL guy, but you want to get into the NFL, this is the time, because on Friday, free agency starts, and NFL is one of the weird companies where their free agency begins before their draft, because the draft is not scheduled till April 24th. That's the day one of the draft, because it's one day on that day, and then other days, the Saturdays and Sundays, I believe, are the rest of the draft. But we have a potential of seeing so many people change. A guy that I'm very, very much locked in on is Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receiver Mike Evans. Now, he was not franchise tagged, and franchise tagged is something a team can do to one player every year, where based on the average, the outgoing market for that position, that is, we will sign you to a 1-year deal on that, kind of more or less. Just give you in a nutshell kind of what that is.
A sort of way of protecting the player, right?
In a way, it's like when we heard about Josh Hammerstone getting his option picked up for 1 year, and it was something that, a lot of people were not sure about, but it's a way for the team to protect, or not protect, but to retain the services of their asset. And that's basically the same thing. This is an out for a team to not lose a guy. Now, you can only do that with one guy. So if you have two people coming in, you want to keep them both, and they may be looking at free agency, you can only do that to one. And that is the thing. There are a lot of people that do not want to stay with the team but get franchise tagged. And when you're franchise tagged, you cannot sign with another team. And that kind of prevents you from making that move. Tampa Bay Buccaneers did not franchise tag Mike Evans. In fact, they're letting him go through free agency. It was a thing last year that he was looking at maybe leaving the team. His contract negotiations fell through. He said that he wanted to kind of play for a winning team. He wanted to see what the team really does at the quarterback thing. And right now they are ongoing with talks with Baker Mayfield. They have not actually done anything of yet. So with Friday's free agency looming, Mike Evans is going to test the free agency market based on the fact that there is absolutely no locked in answer yet on the quarterback position there. I'm very curious to see where he goes. I think Buffalo Bills should move on from Stephon Diggs and replace him with Mike Evans. I think Mike Evans could be a fit for the Kansas City Chiefs. The one team who I think could absolutely benefit from Mike Evans being on their team, Chicago Bears. And I think if the Chicago Bears want to make a true splash, you bring in Mike Evans. Then you use that number 1 pick and you draft Marvin Harrison Jr. And now you have DJ Moore, you have Mike Evans, you have Marvin Harrison Jr. as your 3 options for a wide receiver. Now you have Cole Kmet, and then you have Roshan Johnson, kind of in that backfield with Khalil Herbert as well. You have that duo. Boom. Now I don't think you have to do anything with Justin Fields. You can keep him. You don't have to go quarterback. That is how I would save the offense of Chicago Bears, and then I would use that secondary pick to help the O-line. That's what I would do if I was the Chicago Bears, and that is my way of fixing that team. But to get more into the point of becoming a fan, this is where all the things change. You get to see the fun, chaotic part of free agency, which over the last few years have really picked up in the NFL. Right. And then a month later, you have the draft, and we all know what a draft can do. But this time, the NFL, you do a draft a month after free agency starts. Guess what? Your needs might change based on who you picked up in free agency. It's almost a complete opposite, and it's a completely different ball game at that point. So if you want to become an NFL fan, I highly recommend you start paying attention to it this time around, because this is going to be very interesting, and you're going to absolutely get just studied. Because the one thing about the draft, you need to do research, and you need to find out, and it's one of the fun parts. Also, get into fantasy football. It helps you learn.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about with watching the free agency on Fridays. It's going to help me to learn who the players are, what they did in previous seasons, and so on and so forth, how they could benefit from being signed to other teams and whatnot, to help me get a better understanding of who the player is. I know like the rules of the game and all that, but it's learning the players, who they are and what they do. Like I already know like your Patrick Mahomes, your Brock Purdy's and all that, but it's all the lesser known player names that I want to learn, you know?
Yeah, and just getting up to the understanding of that. And the one thing that I've loved already this season is a lot of teams have made changes on their coaching staff. I know my Saints, they've made changes galore. New offensive coordinator, new defensive coach, new quarterback coach, new running games coach. They've added an analyst and a special number 2 to the kind of the guy that goes through the draft. So it's a process right now. There is true attempts here to make this team more suitable for the changes that they've made. So I'm very curious, because this is the year where I don't think the Saints have to go with a sexy pick. When I say sexy pick, I mean quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, one of those playmakers on the teams. No, you're going to get like an offensive tackle, a guard, a defensive edge, maybe a defensive tackle, something like that. Just one of those big guys that help round out your team. And I think that's something that they're going to do. And I don't think they're really going to make any surprises. In fact, if I was the Saints, I'd be looking at, okay, got the 14th pick. Maybe trade down to 18 and collect maybe a high second out of that too. Let's see if somebody will overpay for 14 and maybe give us some more assets so we can help doing that. Something I'm curious about. But yeah, it's going to be fun. It's also fun to kind of, for me right now, because I'm so invested in watching the draft. I'm someone who does watch the draft. I will PVR the whole draft and watch it, but I will actually write down positions of where I think each team's going to draft and then who I think that position will be. And it's really fun to see if I'm right a lot. And that's kind of now the new thing I do for my own. Gives me a little bit more of an idea that I do have a finger on the pulse when it comes to that. But yeah, no, if I'm going to, is there like a team that you like to watch? I know you play the Madden on there, and I know that you picked, you've had some.
I got drafted to the Colts.
Yeah,
when I played.
Then they got moved or whatever. But then, is there a team that maybe you like watching? Like if you watch football, like is there a team that like you follow at all? Or like maybe you're just like, you know what, maybe like I do like them. I tend to go back to these guys.
Okay, so when I was young, I did watch a lot of NFL. I watched the 49ers growing up because of Joe Montana. So, but my allegiances did change. I throughout the years, I did eventually become a Packers fan.
Okay.
But I'm thinking about moving on from the Packers and trying another team out, seeing which team I think could benefit me, because my brother became a hardcore Packers fan, and it became a little too hardcore to the point where it's like, okay, I'm a little bit sick and tired of this team now.
Well, that's actually funny because my brother is a Packers fan as well. The one thing I will say about the Packers right now is they're definitely in a transitional timeline, but it's a quicker transitional timeline as nobody had them making the playoffs last year or last season. And not only did they do that, but they beat the Dallas Cowboys, which thank you. I won money off that.
Yeah. That's one team I will not be a fan of is the Cowboys, by the way.
Yeah. No, that's the one thing I love about the NFL is you're going to have strong allegiances to a team. You're going to hate some teams. The number one rule is like, hypothetically, if you're a Packer fan, you automatically hate the Detroit Lions, the Chicago Bears, the Minnesota Vikings. That's just a thing.
Yeah.
You never cheer for your own division unless it benefits your team. Then it's okay. But yeah, no, I remember a year where the Atlanta Falcons faced the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl, and I had to cheer for the New England Patriots just because that's the code, man. You do not cheer for your own division if it's not your team, and it doesn't help your team. So that's kind of one of the rules. And you only have one team. Come on, a real NFL fan, any fan. You don't have a second favorite. You don't have a third favorite. You can have teams that you like watching. You can have teams that you enjoy. I like what this team's doing. But you have one team. Loyalty matters in the NFL. That's something I really loved about it. And that's something my brother actually taught me because he grew up like you watching another team. He liked his John Elways. He liked he grew up watching a lot of Denver Broncos games, but that wasn't a team for him. So he ended up picking another team. Obviously, he got enamored by the quarterback thing, and just by chance, he had a gunslinger by the name of Brett Favre on that team.
Yeah.
Or Favre, if you want to be correct. And then just that led to Aaron Rodgers, now Jordan Love. And I think the one thing about the Green Bay Packers, I think what you actually might find if you watch them a lot, it's kind of like my Saints, it'll be some learning curves a lot. But they have a young team, and they're really coming into the zone. They weren't expecting to make the playoffs. Not only did they beat the Dallas Cowboys. They took the San Francisco 49ers to the last drive. They were that Cinderella team kind of last year, and they overachieved, but they maybe have staked some claim that Detroit Lions might have a harder time this year with that division, especially with Chicago. We don't know kind of what they're doing. They're definitely in a transition year. They can do something. They can break something. And then you got the Minnesota Vikings, and Kirk Cousins ain't coming back. So that team could be in this thing. Plus, they might even trade Justin Jefferson this year. Wow, could be crazy. So yeah, you might want to just kind of reserve that leaving the Packer bandwagon, because that team could be a lot of fun to watch. What I
Yeah,
will
I
say
mean,
is, when you pick a team,
give it. Yeah,
that's your team.
given my location, it's actually a lot easier for me to catch Packers games. So,
And that's something that I had to as well. Like when I was watching football, I got a lot of Rams and Seahawks just based on locale. And so I was a Marshall Faulk fan, but over time I didn't really vibe with the Rams. So
right.
I learned to hate the Seahawks pretty quickly, though. Still do. But yeah, I ended up picking the Saints because, well, that's when I had that talk with my brother about how to pick a team. I couldn't pick a favorite because you don't want to be a wagoner. So I
Right.
picked a team that they weren't doing well, but there's a game where they played Jacksonville Jaguars. They did a lot of laterals to get a touchdown, but they needed that extra point to tie the game to force overtime, and Keith Carney just shanks it. So I looked at my brother and I'm like, well, this team's not good, but they make it interesting. That's me in a nutshell. So yeah. Plus, I like the colors. I like their jerseys. Black and gold. It's kind of my thing, as you can tell with the visual and the of this podcast. So yeah. But yeah, if there's a time too, like no better time than right now to start looking at stuff. And right now, 5 days short of the free agency, then a month and a half away from the draft, and then you got training camp, and then you got the season. We're in the fun part of getting ready for NFL football again. So this is the time.
I just thought of another way that I could possibly learn about the players and all that. I have the NFL Network channel, so I could probably tune in and just watch a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and that's the nice thing too. Like now that there's like places like the Zone and the NFL Network, there's a little bit more options to watch more games outside of your location, because we all know cable TV and their blackouts are just a thing in sports, and they're not fun.
It annoys the hell out of me.
Yeah. But speaking of blacking out, we're gonna be blacking out in the sense of we're gonna be wrapping it up pretty quickly. We've gone 90 minutes already. Time flies when you're having fun. Chris Best, I just want to take this time to say thank you once again for taking the place of Joshua Joseph today, because he could not make it due to personal matters. So thank you for coming in last minute. Appreciate that.
Oh yeah, I had fun.
Let the good people know where they could find you and what all you have going on.
All right, so you can look for me, youtube.com at CBRS Entertainment, twitch.tv, CBRS_entertainment, threads.net, CBestFilms83, Facebook.com, Chris.best83, TikTok.com, CBRS.entertainment. You can look for me alongside Perish, alongside OMD, and Caro Carafel as we do the Raw Patrol Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern. I forgot to mention Bubba Duke is also a host on that show as well. Tuesday nights, 8:05 Eastern, as me, Carl, and OMD will break down the news of the week on Turnbuckle Talk. Saturdays, 8 p.m. Eastern. You can look for me at my YouTube channel, CBRS Entertainment, as I do Saturday Night Gaming, where I, once again, left Nathan Drake in a bit of a pickle, this time being attacked by hundreds of Lazarevich's men. Will I get him out? Tune in and find out.
What kind of men were they?
A hired militia this man has hired.
I heard that wrong. I'm not going to repeat what I thought I heard, but I will repeat where you can find me, and that is all on the socials ticking below. And one that I want to talk about is Rogue Energy, as they got that new flavor coming out. And oh my God, but if you haven't checked this out already, dear God, come on, people, go to there, because what they have right now is a flavor that's different. They're trying something out called the Chill. And what they have going on is a strawberry hibiscus. which you're like, what? I don't know. I don't know what that means. I don't even know what Mecca means. But what I do know is when I hear Rogue, I get quality. And if it's Rogue giving you a flavor and they're saying it's good, you know what I believe? Their word, because it's a good product. So go to Rogue Energy, try out that nice strawberry hibiscus. And you tell me if you enjoy the hibiscus, because I kind of have fun saying the word hibiscus. It's weird, but it's a thing. So, but yeah, you could check me out on the Twitch at the Chris Perish, on the YouTube at Chris Perish, my Instagram and my threads at chris.perish, my Facebook at the Chris Perish. I'm on TikTok at Chris Perish, and guess what? For all email inquiries, you can reach me at perishute@gmail.com. That is perishute@gmail.com. And you can also check out the Chris Perish Podcast live on Spotify. All 12 episodes are up, and I make sure that the episode that you just watched is up within the hour of every day. So, yeah, stay tuned to the Spotify. You will see the Chris Perish Podcast episode 13 up within the hour. In case you came through halfway and you missed a little bit of it, you are covered through Spotify. You can go back to all the socials and rewatch it as well. But for the meantime, for the right time, for all of the time, I've been Chris Perish. This has been the Chris Perish Podcast. And if there's one thing I want to let everyone know, it's that I hope you have a great day. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you're safe. I hope you're happy. And go Saints.